Good morning. Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with other entrepreneurs that have overcome and want to provide value to the audience. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses how to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. So today we have Mr. Kevin Buford, who is absolutely amazing. I just want to say that. Okay. So Kevin is not a nurse. All right. So, if I bring someone on here that's not a nurse, they got to be amazing. All right. Just so you know. All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kevin. So if you had to just give us your bio. Tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So my name is Kevin Buford, and I am a social entrepreneur and media specialist. So I have a production company that has transitioned into a media agency where we train and hire like-minded videographers and photographers to go ahead and create visual stories and create compelling content, essentially, that's consistent and brings in cash flow and clientele for businesses. Been doing it for the past 10 years now. And I'm extremely passionate about casting vision. Originally coming from a sports background where I played collegiate sports, so I've always been competitive. But my biggest thing about I always wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself, and just bringing that team atmosphere to the production company and the agency. So the team that I work with, they're not employees; those are teammates. So really big on just like I said, casting vision, creating vision, and just manifesting those ideas into media.
I love it. One of the things I noticed, so Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank, one of the
Oh,
things he talked about is he said that if you'd asked him 10 years ago, what would be the career choice that would make you a lot of money? He said
mhm.
it at that time it would have been engineering. He said,
Mm.
but today he said it would be you creating videos. And I was like,
That's that's amazing that you say that because I originally, and we might get into it, but I originally went to college on an engineering scholarship,
"Mm,
and it transitioned to media, and I'll kind of get into my story a little bit later. But it's amazing that you say that.
sweet, sweet, sweet." So the Lord knew that you needed to do this. Okay.
Absolutely,
So now,
absolutely.
what did you play in college?
So I played defensive back. So always checking wide receivers, making sure I'm locking down. And I was a little bit thicker at the time. Had to put some more weight on my body to make sure I'm protecting myself at all times.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. So okay, so tell me a little bit about because we want to talk about your story
Mhm,
about how you have been treated as far as in healthcare.
mhm.
Okay. Was very compelling to me. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you on. So tell us a little bit about your story as it relates to your experiences in healthcare.
Absolutely. So transitioning, it really was something that transpired and happened in college, where I went to school to be I went to school to be an engineer. I talked to my mom, and my mom asked me before I went to school. She asked me, "What do I want to do?" And I said, "I want to be a photographer." And she told me that photographers don't make any money. And so I, living in mom's house, mom's rules. I went to school and became was studying to be an engineer, and I took a media class, and I fell right back in love with the camera work and different things like that. But while playing sports, I was actually also on an engineering scholarship, and I also was on a football scholarship. Over the course of that time, that is when I learned the most about my body. Whereas bumps and bruises, getting up early, taking care, nourishment, eating the right things, not eating the right things. And over the course of that time, I learned more about my body and how sometimes the system doesn't care too much about you. It's almost like the next person in. And I had to, like I said, take care of myself, and I learned more of the business side of things when it came to sports. So in that transition, I learned more about my body, and I ended up getting hurt my junior year, where I ended up going out with a bad injury where my shoulder was dislocated, and I had nerve damage in my shoulder, and that sat me down, and I had to have a procedure, and it was my first surgery, or a large surgery. I would say, where I had to take the nerves out of the back of my calf and actually lace them up through my arms so I can have feeling back in my arm. Soon after that happened, mom actually fell ill and she had a stroke. So it was kind of like back to back where we're both in the hospital, but I was actually in Michigan at the time, and I could not have surgery in Michigan because my procedure was just that much of a rare case. So I had went to Minnesota and went to the hospital out there, and mom came with me, not telling me that she had a stroke. So I'm noticing some of these differences and changes. Her dragging her leg a little bit, and just we had some candid conversation there, and she finally told me, which was very interesting. So soon after, I had the procedure, and that went well. And I told myself I'll never put myself in a situation where I'll ever have to go under the knife again, because I was left on the table a little bit too long. So I was paralyzed for like 60 seconds, and it was just the longest 60 seconds of my life. So like, I made that vow to myself, and it's amazing when you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So I'm never going to put myself in a situation where I have to go under the knife. And then mom got sick. She got really sick after the stroke, and she had kidney failure. So over the course of that time, my mom has many siblings, so they got tested. They weren't a match. Her husband, now husband, he got tested. He wasn't a match. I got tested in Michigan, and they said that I wasn't a match. A few months later, my mom said, could you come home to Cleveland, Ohio, and get tested? And for whatever reason, I went to Cleveland Clinic, got tested. I'm O positive, so I can give to anyone. So I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I'm blessed and fortunate that she asked me again, and I was actually able to be a match. And then in 2017, this year, we're celebrating 5 years, where I am now a kidney donor for my mother.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That is so super exciting. To be able to give, her back her life, right?
Yeah,
That is huge. So now tell me, because then you started suffering some issues as it relates to your kidneys as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things is after such an amazing feat like that happens, it's just like there's initial shock and, oh, that's amazing. And I believe it almost kind of seems like the industry when I told you about football, it's almost like you're another number. So after the procedure was over and done with, I was given a packet. It's like, hey, do well, read this, live a healthy lifestyle. And it's just like, wow, that's so broad, but okay. But all I know is work out, eat what I want to, still stay in shape, and this, that, and the third. And after that transition, it was one of those things where I went back to old habits of food and, partying and different things like that. And it wasn't necessarily filtrating out of my system the same way with now just having one kidney. So fast forward to now being here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I would say last month, no, the beginning of this year, which is the first quarter, I started noticing some irregularities in my body where, and if you don't mind, I can kind of get a little specific, but I started noticing blood in my stool. I started notice that my stomach was turning. I started noticing an excess loss of weight. I'm normally used to being about 185, 180, or maybe 175, and I got down to about 160, and I haven't been like that since maybe high school. And I started to notice these things. And I've been out here for maybe about 2 years now. And I want to say the end of last year was my first year going to get a checkup. And it was only after noticing these drastic changes, and nobody told me to. It's like, let me just go get a checkup. I have insurance. I just never use it. And I'm so glad I did, because they were telling me that my kidney was starting to fail.
Wow.
And that was a very life altering diagnosis to hear, because they said I'm not filtrating the food and I guess the junk that's in my body. I'm not filtrating it the same way as if I had two kidneys, and which is why I had been feeling sluggish and underwhelmed and maybe a little depressed at the time. And I didn't feel like doing anything. I'm normally a very energetic guy, But I started noticing those things, and I just knew I didn't feel like myself. And that was the diagnosis, at the beginning of the year, first quarter of this year.
So when you say, so I think that honestly, the fail was when you had the kidney extracted
Mhm.
from your body, and then, so what do you feel like how do you, what do you feel like was the lack of, you think it was the broad explanation of what you needed to do? So tell me a little bit about that process, because I think that that is where we, you know the lack in the healthcare, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. So like I said, I completely agree that it was very broad. There weren't necessarily a step by step process on, hey, this is what's going on with your body. This is what we recommend that you do. Come and see us every couple of months. We're going to monitor. Like, there was none of that. And even with myself building up the courage to even go to the doctor after a year and a half, it was one of those things where I thought I would receive more insight on as to what's going on with my body. So they ran labs and different things like that. But it's just like, okay, well, we noticed recently had found out, we noticed that you have a kidney stone. And it's like, well, we can remove the kidney stone. It's like, okay, well, are there any other options besides you cutting me open? Like I said, I made that promise a long time ago. I don't want to have to go back under the knife. Is there any other options? Well, I mean, you can pass it. Okay, how do I go about passing? So it's like I'm now having to like pry and pull information out of the doctors that I'm seeing, whether it's my primary care, if it's the CT scans that I'm seeing. I'm asking all of these questions, which I thought that that would be information that's volunteered if you're seeing some irregularities in my body. So that's where I kind of got discouraged, where it's just like, you guys are giving me information. It's not necessarily good news, but you've seen it before. What do you recommend that we do outside of surgery? Can we change my diet? Can we do this? Can we do, like, what are my options? And why does it seem like I'm pulling teeth in order to get more information about what's going on with myself? And it just kind of, like I said, made me feel discouraged. It's like, well, you guys are doing the bare minimum. I'll just figure it out myself, go to Google and do what I need to do. So that's where I felt like the lack of information, or the pulling teeth, or do you have any other questions? Just waiting for me to go ahead and ask questions in order to provide information. That's why I felt really discouraged, and I really was really lost and just didn't know what to do at the time.
So do you think that your race had any play in that at all?
I don't believe so. I don't feel like race played an issue in this case, but I do feel like it's just, no. I'm glad you mentioned that. The area, and because I'm new to this area, what I've been told is that the area that I've been going to is not normally of my pigment. So I'm not going to see certain doctors that are used to dealing with us, or seeing us. They're just they know the numbers. Like, oh, black folks normally have a high blood pressure. This is normal in your case. So it's just like, take these pills and have a good day. I want someone that has some actual, maybe holistic options for me. What does this medication do? I'm one of those people that really likes to dive into the information. Like, after that procedure has happened, I became a professional in the kidney area. Or after my surgery with my shoulder, I became a professional within my shoulder after doing my own research. So it's just one of those things where I don't believe that race played a factor, but I do think that the stereotype of, oh, well, this is normal, or we've seen this before. So they're not treating it, because this is the first time I'm hearing this, or possible kidney failure, or I've heard it with my mom, but not with myself. So when I'm hearing these things, or they maybe said these things before, they're treating it like it's just another case, and not being able to provide the necessary information or next steps on what should we do now that we found this kidney stone. Here are your options. We need to go ahead and flush the system out. Let's drink some more water. I wasn't provided any information on what I should do next after getting this type of information and news.
I think that, and one of the reasons why I put up, the title of the podcast is Racism in Healthcare, is because
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I've seen in healthcare is the the rates of your kidney
Mm-hmm.
numbers, right? So African Americans, they have different numbers for African Americans than they do for, people of not of our pigment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I have seen is that there's a higher rate of patients that are, Black that go into kidney disease because of that. Because by the time they get to that point, like they're already in kidney failure, just like you were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, understanding that and understanding that that is a huge, huge thing is key in order to turn the tide around.
Yeah.
But I think as well, one of the things that, and I tell people this story all the time. One of the things that the reason why I left healthcare, this is one of the biggest reasons,
Mm-hmm.
was because I saw, I asked one of my COOs, I was like, because I was the readmissions manager. And I asked him, I said, what we're going to do is we're going to on the back end because, we have those 30-day readmission rates, right?
Right.
So if you don't know, so say for instance, you go into the hospital. If you
Okay.
readmit into the hospital within 30 days, the insurance typically does not pay for that. And they penalize you for it as well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they want you to stay out for the 30 days, right? But I said, we're going to work on the back end, but then we're going to work on the front end. We're going to be proactive about it, right? But the deal was that, and what he said to me was that we don't want to keep patients out of the hospital. So, when you speak about that bare minimum, when
Mm-hmm.
you speak about that, I mean, I see that. And, just I'm going to throw this, not a long term solution, a very short term solution at you, and not be there to support you through it all. Because a lot of what we have and a lot of what happens has to do with our diets,
Mm-hmm.
has to do with how we move our bodies. And obviously, you were moving your bodies because you were athletic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But understanding that, because my daddy, he was so funny. He used to eat fatback sandwiches he would eat that fatback sandwiches every couple months, right? And then he would, it's so funny to me. Like just before he would go back to the doctor, he would stop eating the fatback sandwiches. So I was like, "What are you doing?"
Oh
I was like,
gosh.
and look, he was saying, "Well, he said, I don't want my cholesterol level to be up." I said, "Well, that's not how it works, Daddy."
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. We gonna shut it down just in enough time. I see the effort. I see the effort. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that.
But understanding that is key, and
Mhm.
understanding where you come from. So what are
Yeah.
some of the things that you would like to see in
Yeah.
healthcare?
And just before we get into that, it's
Okay.
amazing that you even say that because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And because I have not been going to the doctor, I had a certain expectation on how I thought I should be treated. But when you talk about, do I feel like my color played a role? Maybe I didn't know that, this is what they're used to. This is what they're used to doing. I'm just expecting, hey, I don't feel well. Let me know what's going on, and then let me know the next steps, which I think that that's pretty standard. But I just hearing you speak about it and just kind of going back to my reactions because there's no one that I saw that was of my skin tone and complexion. Um, I wonder what the difference would be. I just wonder what the difference would be. You know what I
I
mean?
think that this is what I have seen. I have
Hmm.
seen that when you are in, and this is the reason why there needs to be a huge amount of diversity in healthcare, right? Because I understand it from your vantage point because
Right.
I am of your same color.
Right.
I went into a room one day, and this young lady, she was having what's called an acute MI, which is a
Hmm.
heart attack. And
Hmm.
she was doing what's called tombstoning. Okay. And what that means is that your ST elevation on the EKG, it looks so high,
Hmm.
okay, that if you don't get to a cath lab soon, you're going to code and die. Period.
Hmm.
And I remember walking in the room, and there were people all around her bed that were not of her color.
Hmm.
And I remember walking in the room, and she was like, "Come here." And I was the supervisor at the time, so I walked up to her bed, and I said, "Yes, ma'am." And so she said, "I've got to go home." And I said, "You can go home." I said, "But I wouldn't advise it." I said,
Right.
"Because 9 times out of 10, you won't make it back here." And
Hmm.
so she kept saying, I don't trust him. I don't trust him. I said, "I will stay with you." I said, but this, I said, you got it. I said, we got to fix this within minutes,
Right.
or you will be here. Okay. I
Right.
know that for a fact.
Right.
And so, sure enough, I stayed with her, and then she ended up going upstairs. She ended up going to the cath lab, and she had what's called a widowmaker, which was she had a clot in her Ellie, I don't forgot Ellie something. Anyway,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, LDA. So anyway, I get it wrong because it's been a long time. Okay,
Right.
because
Right. Right.
Miss Nurse coaching for a while, but she had the widowmaker and she would have died. And so
Mm,
and she thanked me after that. But it was because I saw it from her vantage point, and she
right.
just didn't trust, because she had been within the medical system for
Mhm.
a long time within healthcare, and she just didn't trust it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so understanding that, and that's the reason why, when you told me your story, I was like, just call me up,
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
up. I said, I will help you be an advocate for yourself. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I want to make sure that you are taken care of because you're
Mhm.
phenomenal at what you do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
want to tell everybody.
Thank you.
I mean, literally, I'm like, this dude is, he is amazing. I'm just
Thank you.
like, I cannot. So,
Thank you.
I mean,
Mhm.
and your talents are absolutely needed in this world, right?
Mm.
And so I'm super excited.
Yeah,
So,
and real quick, I'm so glad that I'm having revelation as you continue to talk about it. It's just one of those things because I didn't process my thought process while I'm in there because I'm doing all these first quarter. I was probably in the hospital 27 times, and I don't have family out here in Atlanta. So going through that process mentally, not knowing what's going on with my body, going in here not seeing my own color, um, coming home confused, it did something to my psyche where it built up a trust. I feel nervous when I go to the doctor, and it's supposed to be a place where you can feel like you can get answers. But now I'm talking about and thinking about the mindset over the course of the time, and I'm so grateful for having this conversation because I didn't process what was going on at the time. I'm going there by myself, not knowing what they're saying, using these big words, me having to ask more questions, and then when I do, I ask another question. It's almost like I'm irritating. Um, these are things that I didn't think of that may have added to the stress or the depression that I was going through at that time. And it's just interesting that when you say, I feel like I don't trust, it was more of I think they were more so earning my distrust because I was going in there neutral with a neutral tone where it's like, I don't really want to see this white coat. I don't need to go to the doctor. I'll figure it out myself. Then when I'm going in there, it's like bringing confirmation to what it is that I felt coming into it in the first place. So when you say that and I hear that, I can kind of relate and put myself in those shoes because like I said, they're living up to not the expectation, but the scale could have went either way. And it's just like, well, you guys are leaning towards the way that I didn't want um, by not even answering the simple questions or sending me to this next person. They sent me to maybe 5 or 6 different doctors before we can find out that, hey, it's a kidney issue or, hey, it's a digestive issue. But nobody has mentioned anything else about food. Like, hey, I was on and I was taking maybe 3 or 4 different pills at the time, and it's just like I don't want to take pills. They give you I don't know if I got this, that, and the third going on, and I'm reading these big words and having like, what is this for? Oh, well, this is for your chest. I said my stomach hurts. My stomach hurts. Well, yeah, I mean, it'll process down and this, that, and the third. And then I started to have chest pain. And I'm confused. And then that anxiousness and that anxiety starts to build up. So when you talk about the trust factor, I can completely understand because that's something that I grew through over the course of that time. And it's not talked about. And like I said, that's more of a revelation for me is I didn't even consider the mental factor that I was going through at that time. Um, not just with my physical self, but just my mental as well. So that's really good to hear that.
and it's one of the things that you mentioned is, when we talked about advocacy, right?
Hmm.
Really being intentional about having someone who is an advocate for you, go to the doctor with you all the time, right?
Hmm.
And understanding, having them understand even what you learn, even if they can't be present with you, right? having them to understand, whether they can be on the phone or whatever they need
Yeah.
to do, so that they can understand. And as you grow in your business, right, you can even have a nurse, right? Because there's nurse concierge services, right, that are out
Mm-hmm.
there that help you. They will go to your doctor. They will be the advocate for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, obviously you want it, the nurses and the physicians to be advocates for you, but that's not the case all the time, right?
Right.
And so you want to make sure that you are doing that. I
Mm-hmm.
remember my brother had pancreatic cancer, and when he did, I told his daughter, I was like, you got to go with him, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got to go with him. You got to be his advocate because you don't feel good. If
Yeah.
you don't feel good, you may not ask the question, so you may not have the thought process in order to be able to
Mm-hmm.
do that. So that is one key thing. So I'm grateful that we are having this
Yeah.
conversation, because I want more people. I don't care what color you are,
Mhm.
honestly. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, I want you to have the ability to be able to have an advocate when you go into healthcare, because sometimes it is very confusing. It's
Yeah.
not confusing to me because I've been a nurse for 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But and I know the questions to ask, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful for that,
Yeah.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, there's your physiological being. You can't get to self-actualization until you have that together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And let me speak to my brothers out there.
all right, go
Go
ahead.
and get,
Say
go
too much. Go ahead.
please. Oh my gosh. And I'm him. I've been there. Please go and get checked out because you just don't know what you don't know. Coming from that football background, I'm used to being able to numb the pain. I'm used to being able to go through. Are you hurt or are you injured? Like, can you still live your day to day? And it's just like these little aches, pains, bruises, something that's abnormal, like go and get checked out, especially if you have insurance. Even if you don't, like it'll be an investment to just see what's going on the inside of your body. Because at the time, you wouldn't be able to tell that I was actually ill. Chest was looking good, abs popping. I'm still able to do my day to day. My energy wasn't as well as where it used to be, but go and get checked out because you just don't know if you're starting to feel these abnormal symptoms and you just don't know if it's urination. Oh, that'll pass because these are the thoughts that I had. Oh, that'll pass. Oh, that's not normal this week, but it'll be better next week. Like we just psych ourselves out or hype ourselves up to say that our body is going to go ahead and handle it naturally, and then it becomes a new habit for ourselves, and it's not a good one. So I talk to my fellas, I speak to my fellas, please go and get checked out. Please go and get tested, whatever the case may be. If it hurts, if it burns, if it itches, whatever the case may be, like don't self-diagnose yourself into bad habits. Go and get checked out, get another opinion. Please, 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 coming from a man that did it himself. Go and get checked out.
I love it. Now, are there any other parting thoughts that you want to impart to the audience?
Any other parting thoughts? Yes. Please start thinking of more of yourself, more your health as an investment into your life. So we think about health as, oh, well, I want to, and I'll speak for myself. I want to live long. I want to do this. I want to travel. But we're not doing the necessary things. And it's not that I didn't know that I should be eating better, but I didn't know how much of a role that the food and the things that I'm putting in my mouth, I did not know how much of a role it plays with my health. And when I'm eating these burgers and I'm eating these processed foods on a consistent basis, that goes back to those bad habits that I'm talking about. And it starts to transition mentally where it's like, I am fueling myself, but what grade of fuel am I putting into my body? It wasn't until I recently hired, and it's going on 4 or 5 months now. I recently hired a dietitian that said, you shouldn't be eating this. This is messing with the acids in your body to go ahead and create, pain that might. So there's a lot that's going on in your body that you don't even know about. So be careful what type of fuel that you're putting into your body. Are you just looking for a quick fix? If so, I advise you to go ahead and take the cooking route. I advise you to go ahead and start learning how to read labels. My gosh, if I knew how my gut health really affects the entire body, I would probably have prevented so many more things from happening over the course of my lifetime. But I'm glad that I figured it out sooner than later. But your gut health has everything to do. I mean, I go and get my feet done, and they're rubbing your feet. There's like, what's going on with your stomach? It's like you can tell what's going on with my stomach by like touching certain nerves and things on the bottom of my feet, and it's just like it's amazing how your gut health really moves from the inside out. So please, please, please start being cautious and being more aware of what you're putting in your body, because your gut health, the things that you're putting in your body can just save your life.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Kevin,
Oh
because
yeah,
you're just absolutely phenomenal. I mean,
thank
from the date that I met you, I was like, oh, which I, when I saw all your videos, I
you.
was like, oh, he's the person I want to be in my life.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then we started talking on a personal level, and I thought, yes, I really want to make sure that we get you on this podcast.
yes,
Thank you
yes.
for coming on. So this is Dr. V, where we teach nurses how to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. So we do have a master class. It's coming up September 6, 2022 from 6 until 8 p.m. And it's going to be giving you the basic foundation of working from anywhere around the world, coaching and consulting specifically. So if you want to sign up for that, you can go to my website. I do have a link in the copy for you to sign up for that. You can go to my website. It's on the and over the website at the top. It says masterclass for you to sign up for it. It's going to be an amazing time. So I can't wait. And thank you, Kevin, again. And you guys, everybody, have a great rest of your day.
Actually,